So let's start with the law. As we said, IDEA mandates an IEP for each child that is eligible in the least restrictive environment, and that includes, what did we say that includes? Transition. And I know that I'm going to probably hammer on that, but it really is a hard thing for both schools and a lot of parents to understand. It is a part of FAPE. I don't ordinarily like to read when I'm doing these kind of speeches, but I think it's important that we read the law together. And we took out a short section from the Code of Federal Regulations rather than the U.S. Code, and it's not too long. If we can take a look at that, please. Transition services means a coordinated set of activities for a child with a disability that is designed to be within a results-oriented process that is focused on improving the academic and functional achievement of the child with a disability, to facilitate the child's movement from school to post-school activities, including post-secondary education, vocational education, integrated employment, including supported employment, continuing in adult education, and adult services, independent living, or community services. One of the things that the people wanted the act to do was to be sure to provide these children with employment that had disabilities, wanted them to get a high school diploma, wanted them to go on and have a working life, which is why transition is a part of the IEP. Well, let's talk about a few things. What's results-oriented mean? What does that mean? What is our goal? As I said, and I'm going to my kids tell me I talk about the olden days, but it's the only way to explain to you. In the olden days, when they did the transition, they never looked for a result. They never looked to see, would this child be able to have a job? Would this child be able to go to college? And what should we do to help them do that? That's why they included in the Code of Federal Regulation the words result-oriented. They want you to mention the needs and strengths of the children. Used to be all they ever put on an IEP were the weaknesses and the needs, and not the strengths. Parents should be included in writing what their child's needs and strengths are, and are an important part. And then in addition, they must include instruction and services. Okay, now I do not believe that sufficient instruction is once a semester. Okay, to me that's ludicrous. I couldn't learn to write a resume in one session. I don't know how a child can learn to write a resume. That's what they meant by services, because there was a feeling at some time that transition didn't include services, that the only part of the IEP that really needed to include services were the goals and objectives. Now they set from the state a standard IEP form that is very specific in the fact that there must be measurable goals for transition, for the transition student. Child, by the time he is of age 16, must have a transition plan in place. Ohio says that they must start addressing it, not necessarily have a plan in place, but addressing the needs for transition at the age of 14. Let's go on and read the second and third part of this law. They say the transition plan is based on the individual child's needs, as we just talked about, taking into account the child's strengths, preferences, interests, and includes instruction, related services, community experiences, employment, other post-school objectives, and if appropriate, acquisition of daily life skills. Okay, we all know what community experiences are? We want our kids to be able to go out into the community. We want to take them with us when we go places. And part of the way that they learn to do that is through school, and this is a necessary part of transition services. Related services, you all know what that is. And if appropriate, daily acquisition skills. If you look at the next page, it says transition services for children with disabilities may be special education if provided as specially designed instruction or a related service, if required to assist a child with a disability to benefit from special education. Every child is entitled to a free appropriate public education between the ages of 3 and 21. Every child is entitled to transition services until they're 21, unless you do one thing. Anybody know what that is? If you graduate, if you get a diploma, okay, all your services are cut off. So this becomes a big decision for parents whose children are 18. If your child is going 18, 19, whatever age they are when they're ready to graduate, if your child is going on to college, it's not a problem. That child, until he leaves for college at the age 18, is still entitled to transition services to help get him ready for college. But if your child takes a diploma and you want him to stay for till he's 21 to receive a special education, the diploma will stop you. You cannot do both. What we did a number of years ago, we tried a very, it was to us a wonderful case, but for the parents, I'm sure it was a great deal of, I know it was a great deal of stress. And that was, we had a young man that wanted to graduate with his class. He had a disability, which he acquired as he got older and did not have when he was younger. So he went to school. You know who I'm talking about, Bob? Yes. Okay. And he acquired a disability after he got older, and he wanted to graduate with the friends that he knew since he was a kid. And the school said, well, you have to make a choice. If you walk across the stage to get a piece of paper, then you don't get 3 more years of education. So we filed a lawsuit, and what we did was we instituted what we call social graduation. And the child was able to walk from across the stage to get a blank piece of paper. His diploma was held in what we call the abeyance in the office of the superintendent, and that child was able to go on and get the 3 years of education that he needed. My understanding is that most schools in northern Ohio have been using social graduation since that case.
I have a question. I have a 19-year-old who's a senior in high school, and he wants to take community college classes over the summer and the fall, and he's gotten accepted. Does that make him ineligible to continue services?
Has he taken a diploma?
No.
No. Then do other kids who are in high school, are they taking college courses?
I don't know.
Yep, they are.
So that's
They
okay.
are. So
that's
he's
all right.
entitled to do that.
I just don't want my kid to not have services.
Right. No, I understand. And there are all kinds of diplomas to get, in the state of Ohio. You can get a regular diploma. Some schools give a baccalaureate diploma. Some school districts give attendance diplomas. Some give special ed diplomas. This is all part of what you need to plan with your IEP team. And we're going to get into the meeting and planning all of this. And you need to make these decisions early. Often transition was never discussed until the last semester of the child last year. Okay, and then they would say, well, BVR, it's not BVR anymore, I don't know what they call it now, but that it was full and nobody could get in, and that was the end of the school's responsibility. We're going to talk more about the fact that that's not the way it should happen.
Post-secondary education and vocational education.
Post-secondary school can be college, can be law school. Vocational is more of an emphasis on, from what I understand, is more of an emphasis on doing things, hands-on type things, maybe being working on cars, maybe being a computer worker, that sort of thing. That's the difference, where you won't necessarily get a college degree or a graduate degree. Okay, this is where my first section, this is the law. This is all the law that you need to know. If there's something you don't understand, I want to stop for a minute and please ask your questions.
Is it up to the family? Like, can the school system push you out prior to 21? Is that
No, that's up to the family and what the child's needs are. Okay. If you have a child that can graduate with all the credits and wants to go on to college, then you're not going to have them stay at the school.
Right.
But if you have a child that you think needs another year or another 2 of education, you can opt to do that too. And it's all based on the child's needs. And remember, his strengths and his preferences. So it's not for the school to tell you what your child wants to do. It's for the child to tell the school what they want to do. And we're going to talk about self-advocacy. The only place that they can opt out of transition services in the IEP that we're going to look at address instruction, employment, and living skills. The only area that you can opt out of for kids, if the IEP team thinks is appropriate, is life skills. Now, we're going to talk about who is the team, but I think you all know who the most important people are in the team, from my perspective: parents and the student. And don't forget that. Sure, they wanted to know what were the 3 areas that I said were addressed in the transition plan that they have to discuss for their children, and their instruction, employment, and life skills.